Guys, I am very happy to report that I got early access to Warden, and I have been having an absolute blast playing it. I am actually enjoying it so much more than I expected to, and it has so much more strategic depth than I expected. It's actually very challenging, which I appreciate and is not really what I expected. I think you guys will love it, and you should definitely at least give it a go. I've been spending quite a bit of time actually just figuring out how to optimize the game and which items are good and which characters are good and all that sort of thing. There is actually a competitive leaderboard that already there is quite a lot of competition. I haven't been able to play as much as some people, and every time I come back there are people pushing for higher and higher trials, which is awesome. And at the end of the day, I would love this game to actually be competitive, so I want to try and pass on some of the knowledge that some of the early CCs have got. Obviously, you could find all this information because a lot of people are streaming it, making videos about it, but I just wanted to condense it just for the beginners that just really want to have an idea or be able to come back to it after playing a couple of rounds and sort of get a bit more of an understanding. So hopefully this helps you. Keeping in mind, though, this is pre-release. Some things may change. Obviously, I think still I'll be able to give you a lot of tips that'll give you a pretty good base understanding. And a lot of this has just been from playing because, not all the information is blatant. So there could be some things that are slightly wrong, but I promise you're going to get good info. So for the basics, what is Warden? How I'd probably describe it is it's an asymmetrical PvE game where the basic goal is just to repeatedly enter trials or levels, however you want to call it. It's technically called trials, and destroy infected objectives and then escape. There are these enemies called corrupteds, which are basically corrupted creatures that patrol and hunt you down over the course of the trial. So obviously that's where a lot of the challenge comes from. I'll go a little bit more into them a little bit further, but first we'll probably talk about the actual characters that you'll play as. So there are currently 10 characters, however, I'm mostly targeting this at new players, so there are really only 3 that you're going to unlock fairly quickly, which is Milo the Icaran, Yogi the Yosog, and Valus the Galaran. So the first character that everyone unlocks right off the bat is Milo the Icaran, which is a great starter character. It's very middle of the road in terms of stats. The main thing you need to note for any of these characters is they all have a unique ability other than their stats, which have some variation. In this case, Milo's ability is Morale Boost, which is actually really, really strong. It gives you a buff as well as any of your nearby allies, which is 25% extra damage, 25% extra stamina regen, 35 extra stealth, and that lasts 20 seconds. It has about a 75-second cooldown. It's actually really, really good. So if you don't really know what to play, absolutely just play Milo. Milo's great. Shortly after Milo, though, you are probably going to unlock either Yogi or Valus, depending on how things go to go for you. The main one I want to actually talk about is Yogi. Yogi is definitely possibly the better of the 3. You could maybe go with Milo. Valus is not really as good, and I'll talk about why shortly, but Yogi's a cute little Yosog, so we love that, but they are so strong. They have one of the highest, well, they have the highest stat for stamina regeneration, quite high speed, so they're really good at, escaping, but they also have Ice Yelp, which is a really, really big ability for them. Basically, you put a icy pile underneath you, and it attracts any of the nearby corrupted enemies to it, and then they will get frozen in place. You can pretty much just drop this whenever. It's like an AoE, so it's really good for getting out of some tricky situations, like if you get cornered. It's also really good if you're playing with a party, because you can use it to save your allies. All sorts of stuff. It's really, really good. The only downsides, really, of Yogi is pretty much just going to be, look, it has very low stealth, which kind of works for his playstyle, and very low damage. It's still really good in solos. I push for a pretty decent solo run playing as Yogi, just because it's really, really safe. It's a little bit slower because of the lower damage, but it's really good in solo. It's great in teams. Definitely you should try Yogi, and pretty much every team, especially early on, is going to want to have at least one, if not multiple Yogis on the team. Finally, we have Valus, which, to be honest, I don't really recommend using if you're trying to play optimally. They're not completely useless, but look, they're sort of have less damage than Milo. They have less stamina than Yogi, so they're a bit of a sort of support character, but their support ability is basically they will reveal 50% of the corrupteds on the map, which is kind of useful, but there are items that sort of already do that, and it's, compared to the other two, it's not really as strong, in my opinion. Now, we're going to talk about some of the enemies. So, technically speaking, I'm going to count them as enemies. They are the infected objectives, which are the main objectives that you are going to go for. Most of them are pretty straightforward, but there is definitely a big tip that I want to provide for one of them. But first, the most basic one is just called Infected. It's basically, you fight it, you do damage to it, doesn't really have any special effects or anything like that. After that, we have Leech Core, which, funnily enough, kind of looks like Harlu in an egg form, which I really like. I don't know, just wanted to throw that out there. It will actually drain your stamina while you're fighting it, so you do need to be careful. It doesn't drain a heap, but you need to be aware that if you're going at it while you already have low stamina, you might struggle to run away from some of the enemies if they come and interrupt you. And next we have Paragon, which is Spirit's favorite. They will tell you non-stop on repeat. Looks really cool, just a slight sort of side comment, but basically the whole gimmick with this is you have to hit a critical hit on it, otherwise it will scream and attract enemies to you. It isn't too hard most of the time, but it is worth keeping in mind. Look, you need to be extra careful to make sure you are definitely hitting critical hits on it on its mini games. Finally, we have Shrieker, which is the one I wanted to talk about. So probably one of the more annoying ones to deal with, but also one of the most useful. Basically, when it gets to 50% HP, it will shriek and then attract enemies to its location, and you won't be able to hit it for a few seconds. Now, as annoying as this is, it's actually really useful, especially in higher trials, because you can actually use it to draw things to you as a distraction while you go tackle some of the harder to actually sort of contest objectives around, because some of them, especially later on, there can be very little downtime where there is not something patrolling nearby. So having things like this can actually be really, really useful. Now onto the Corrupteds themselves. There are currently 18 roaming or patrolling types of enemies in the game called Corrupteds. Most of them have huge variation in stats and behavior. Honestly, the best way to learn them is going to be to play. I am planning on making a longer video going over all of them as I know more. I've learned a lot about a lot of them, but there's still some questions that I need to answer before I can say 100%. But I will briefly mention a lot of the basic ones and how they work. The most simple ones are the Corrupted Puffwump, Icaran, and Yosog. For the most part, they basically just have some variation in stats. The main thing you need to know about any of the enemies in the game is basically they will, for the most part, have some kind of line of sight, or at least some kind of trigger that when this is triggered, again, usually line of sight, they will chase you until line of sight is broken for a few seconds. Now, this is extremely important to note, because essentially what you need to do is manage getting away, getting behind a wall, and then being sure that they don't see you. This can make or break a chase. If you kind of mistime things, they can, run around the corner still, because they won't just drop you immediately as soon as they don't see you. So it's very important to get the hang of the exact sort of timing it takes to sort of drop them. If you didn't notice, I will be showing some examples of this as I was talking about it in that previous sort of couple sentences. So if you want to have a good look at it, just go back a couple seconds and you'll see what I'm talking about. One extra one I want to highlight, which is another one that you'll see very early, is Malu. Big thing with Malu is they work a little bit differently. They're actually probably one of the easier enemies to deal with, because they basically will only chase you if you get extremely close to them or if you sprint in their line of sight. So you can actually basically just walk past them, which is very, very good to know. Other than that, look, just as a sort of example of what other ones you can sort of see, here's some sort of early ones that you might see, and just to give you an idea of how different some of them can be. So there's Entherman, who is completely stationary and will sit in basically this web, and essentially they will only aggro if you sprint over that web or do some kind of action, get, I guess, extremely close, I believe also triggers it. And Entherman hits like an absolute truck. I will probably show you me getting hit by it. be careful of Enderman. Respect the web. You can sprint through it if you're fast enough, but just make sure you get out of there quick. And another one, just to be sort of aware of, is something like Yggdrasil, who is really, really scary, and you can find them quite early on. They basically will act like a normal sort of basic enemy, but they will also shoot projectiles at you, which can also go through walls, and sometimes the hitboxes of these can be a bit bigger than you might expect, so just be really careful around Yggdrasil as well. And last thing I want to talk about, at least for this video, is items. So basically, in between each trial, you will go in this little hub area, and there will be a shop that you can buy 3 items with souls, which are basically these little orbs that you can collect in each trial. However, you also can get pretty much all these items for free in the trials themselves, but it's sort of randomized. There's actually quite a few items with quite a bit of variation what they do, but I'm just going to go over the most basic ones that you're going to see early. Things like there's speed potions, stamina potions, and these might not be official names. I don't know the official names, but this is what they look like to me. Damage claws, damage potions, and healing leaves. The speed potion and stamina potion are pretty self-explanatory. Speed gives you extra speed. Stamina gives you a burst of stamina. Damage claws give you a damage boost. Damage potions will actually do a burst of damage to any infected objective you are currently doing, which is extremely good. And healing leaves heal you. There's a few extras, which I'm going to go over probably in a later video, but you know, you get sort of an idea. Now, one of the biggest tips I can give you of the game in general, items are so important, and you need to not be afraid of inventory management. You should try to get used to maximizing usage, because trust me, it is vital in later rounds. And what I mean by inventory management is, so all characters have a default of 3 item slots. However, you can always drop any item by holding the use button for a few seconds. I highly recommend doing this a lot and getting used to it. Even if you don't particularly need the item you are using or see on the ground, you can absolutely drop an item, quickly pick one up, use it, grab your original item again. And another thing, especially again, cannot stress enough in later rounds, remembering where you left certain items, because that can make or break your run. Very, very important to be aware of how items work and get used to using them and knowing what they do and which situations they're sort of best used for. I will show a couple quick sort of examples of what I'm talking about, especially, you know, with dropping items, blah, blah, blah. And there's, you know, this one here as well, which is a great example of how you can use it also to help your team. Like here, where I dropped a healing item for a teammate that was literally near death, for them to pick up while running, quickly use it, and then obviously be safe. There's a lot of cool things you can do. Even though this is just such a simple mechanic, I cannot stress enough how important item usage is in this game. Alright, that's pretty much it from me. Hopefully you guys actually got something useful from this. And this is not really a video that I make a lot of, but, you know, a lot of, I guess my community knows that I've always had a bit of a focus on, you know, competition, PvP, even though, you know, these games like Creatures of Sonaria and all that are not, you know, super high tier competitive games, but it's fun just to look at how to optimize things, all that sort of stuff. So I'm probably going to do more of that for Warden, because there's a lot in there that I actually really like. I've been doing, you know, trying to go for like speed runs and things like that, and how to optimize, and it's just been a lot of fun. So I might do some more things like this. If I don't normally ask for this sort of thing at the end of videos, but this is a video that is a bit different to what I normally do. So if you do like it, do comment, like, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the metrics. I want to actually hear what people think of this. If you don't like this for any reason, or you have suggestions, absolutely let me know, because I had a lot of fun making this video, and I think I do want to do more things like this, and I'll probably try and adjust and improve as we go. So anyway, adios.